Question everything, for the truth will not be televised, and that's for sure. So with that, when you look at how United States government, school system, school curriculum, school program, institutions, religious unions, how they tend to classify us as African American, even though we know that before African American, we was called colored, we was called savage, we was called Afro American, we was called a variety. Even now, even with the term black, that's new as well. And my thing is, none of this stuff, Negro, you know, I hold true to the Negro because it goes further back into history and it breaks off into where you can actually paper trail it to who we actually are as a people. So with that stated, it's like, what's the reality to classifying us as these different nationalities? And why have they been giving us so many? What is the real reality behind it? Because the United States government and the French, the British, and all these people know exactly who they infringed upon. Let's just be clear on that. They know who they put into shackles, guys. They know. They're not fools. These systems and governments, they know exactly who we are. You best to believe it. Because with the ledgers, the decrees, and documents that we're getting today in books from their own people, we're finding out who we are and why they stopped us from reading for 200 years to change us as a people, change all places and all things as well. They call it changing people, places, and things. I always said, how do you change a people? I understand how you can change places. I understand how you can change all things, by rewriting them and so on. But how do you change a people? Well, first of all, you got to declassify them out of their own identity, out of their heritage, out of their culture, out of their way of life, out of their God, out of their land. Once you declassify them out of all that, then you got to make laws to keep them out of it, so that way they don't congregate amongst themselves and try to keep any of this type of information amongst themselves. And then you got to do it with an iron fist, so that way everybody know the punishment of utilizing their national tongue or language that they actually had as Aboriginals or indigenous. And you also got to show that any type of coming together in the form of congregating and teaching and sharing information, you got to outlaw that. You got to demonize that. You got to demonize any type of homeschooling, so that way you can't self-educate, because if you self-educate, you might be teaching them your language, or you might be teaching them your culture. So you got to demonize all that as well. Then you also got to divide them up by taking the babies from the parents and putting the babies over here, and taking the parents and putting them over there, and taking this and putting them over there, and putting them over there. And we know that we have a history of being sold, and our children and so on being sold here, there, there. All these things on top of being stopped by reading for 200, stopped from reading for 200 years, because not that you didn't know how to read, they stopped you from reading. It's a difference, a different wording. So with that stated, once you do all this, now you got a people that's becoming blank, psychologically and mentally blank, and culturally blank on who they are, spiritually blank on who they are. And once that happened, then you can start implementing, after you change everything as the colonizers, you can start implementing the information that you want to reprogram them with. Thus, school programs, school curriculums, TV programs. Understand, a program is a program. It's to program the mind, the spirit, the soul, to program the individual. So once you start to implement these different programs, so-called teachings, that individual start to absorb that, especially at an early age of kindergarten, preschool, and so on. And as you go on, you start to implement and take on what your colonizers have set up for you to think like, be about, act like, interact like, and have as a culture. Even take on their language as you lose your language, based off of force and fear and domination of the individuals that are invading you and taking over your land. This is what happened to us. So when we think about using the terms African America, are we declassifying ourselves out of our own nationality by allowing the schools systems to tell us who we are? How do the school system know who your bloodline is? And how do the colonizer itself, after doing all this to you, would want to give you back all that when they don't want to give you reparations right now, reparative justice for the crimes that they have done, which would give you economic growth in order to liberate yourself from their clutches and their control? These are things that you got to ask yourself. Because if you can't get a bill passed for protection against hate crime right now, even though you're number one on the list from what the federal census of ethnic hate crime state, they're telling you that they're not willing to help you in your plight away from what they have done to you and against you. And if that's true, then what make you think they're giving you proper education? What make you think they're giving you proper water, proper food, proper anything in that sense, if they're not willing to do the justice, the just thing, the honorable thing for what they already know that they ongoingly have done to you repeatedly throughout time? See, these are things that you must come to grip with as Aboriginal Niggros of America, because it's imperative that you do. Why? Because your grandbabies and great-grandbabies are on the hook when you don't. Things are not getting cheaper in America, and the cost of living ain't going to go down. And the plight for our people is not going to get better unless we acknowledge the truth. And the truth is we're not liberated, and the people that came here to colonize us ain't had our best interests at hand since they got here. And they're not. Why? Because I just stated to you, they're not trying to give you no type of reparative justice. And if they do, they want to give it to you in the form of things that's not going to give you economic power, economic strength, in order to liberate yourself into your own nation, away from their nation being crushed under their God. This is just a reality to it. These are some of the things we must come together and start to deal with. At your own home, with your own children, with your own family and friends, as you branch out to go and deal with others that look just like you, in the form of coming together, unifying together, pooling it together, and actually bringing resources together to build economic growth for ourselves, and bringing out the word to what's really going on with our people, thus that we can start to think a little more clearly and come together a little more better to be able to deal with the colonizers in their approach or how they're dealing with us 100%. And that's also mean to call out the chucking and jiving, cooning, house brothers and sisters, the Sambos, for what they are doing as well when it comes to pretending that they have our best interests at hand when it comes to being our representatives, or even our celebrities and our wealthy. Because at the end of the day, if they're not willing to help our people in a form of liberation, in a form of coming together and setting up an economic power for our structure as a nation, to be able to build amongst each other and have amongst each other, to be able to bring forth communities that are going to uplift our children, then why do we need these appointed representatives and these wealthy and these rich celebrities if they're not going to be willing to take part in that? This is just a reality to it. So we got to start thinking about these things. What is this declassification of naming of us as a nation when we are the Aboriginal Niggros of America? If we own who we are, then we got to also own the fact that we are the landlords of America. But that's what the real reality is. And this is what the little trick of hushing up everything is also about. And as you continue to study biblical history and investigative research the biblical history of things, you start to find out why we also went into shackles. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the biblical history is starting to say that we're actually the true 12 tribes, the true Israelites, the true chosen, the true people of the land, and the true people of our Creator. How that may make you feel and how that may rub off on you, to each his own. Because at the end of the day, we're chasing truth. And that's all we're looking for. We're not looking for your feelings. We're not looking for what you think. We're looking for the truth of what's been going on and where are we going as a nation of people, as Aboriginal